It was March 1995, and South Memphis's biggest drug dealer was in jail. But his Chevy Lumina was impounded, and it had $500,000 in cash hidden in the stash spot at the commercial yard where the Memphis PD paid to keep impounded cars. A guy named Antoine Big Wayne Allen knew this local kingpin, and he got instructions from him on how to get into the car and open the stash to retrieve the $500,000. But as his name implies, Big Wayne was too big to get into the impound or get his hand in the stash, so he had to bring in a few other guys, including his younger and much smaller cousin, who was about 5'5" and 130 pounds, Craig Petties. Petties and one of his friends threw a ladder up over the fence. They go into the impound while Antonio Allen and another guy stand lookout, and they get into the Chevy Lumina, and they get the $500,000, and they get out of Dodge. Now, once they had the $500,000 they were supposed to give it to the guy whose money it was, but they decided not to. And Petties was promised a $100,000 cut from his cousin Big Wayne, but he ended up only getting $50,000 supposedly. The other guys apparently spent their money, but Craig Petties was, well, it seemed smart at the time, but maybe wasn't so smart in the end. He put his money into buying wholesale amounts of marijuana and cocaine, and eventually Petties would become one of the very few black drug dealers in the modern era to work directly with a cartel, La Barbie and the Beltran-Leyva cartel down in Mexico. Two men born into different circumstances in two very different parts of America around the same time, one in '74, one in '76. But they both had the same dream: money, power, and respect. And for a time, not a short time, but certainly not a long time, they were both very rich, very powerful. And as for respect, well, fear is often confused with respect, but they were certainly both very feared. Edgar Villarreal, aka La Barbie, would-be Beltran-Leyva cartel boss, and Craig Lil Dude Petties, who parlayed running off on the plug into tens of millions in cash. La Barbie was born into a solid middle-class family in Laredo, Texas, a city which is about 95% Latinx and is one of the lowest crime cities in America. Craig Petties was born in South Memphis, a city that is predominantly African American and is one of America's crime capitals. Their paths eventually converged, but first let's talk about Craig Petties. He grew up in the Riverside section of the Bluff City and started getting in trouble during the summer of 1993 when he got arrested twice for selling crack, though apparently not convicted. Now, just days before his 17th birthday, Craig Petties was with a group of guys, and they walked up to another kid named Eric Cole, and someone shot him. Cole got hit in the back, but he lived, and he went on to identify a shooter, and it wasn't Craig Petties, so once again he avoided trouble. Now by 2000, less than 5 years after he snuck into the car lot and stole the stash, Craig Petties was copping from cartel operatives in Memphis. And Petties was flipping the product so fast that these guys in Memphis took him down to Corpus Christi, Texas, to introduce him to their boss, Edgar Valdez Villarreal, aka La Barbie, a Texas native whose high school football coach gave him that nickname because of his Ken doll-like appearance. He had very fair skin, blonde hair, green eyes. He looked white, which was a rarity in Mexican cartel circles. Now, La Barbie's story is even more fascinating perhaps than Petties, and we'll get to him in the next chapter. So Craig Petties, who's about 23 at this point, he's down in Texas, and he hangs out with La Barbie and other members of the Beltran-Leyva cartel in Texas for about a week or so, where they get tight. And then La Barbie took him down to Laredo, which is the border town where he grew up, and he showed the kid from Memphis the key gateway used to funnel drugs across the American border by his cartel. So as a test, while he was in Texas, Barbie gave Petties a quick 10 keys to get rid of, and he moved them really fast, and I guess Petties and Barbie hit it off, and they became friends, and the cartel sort of accepted him as one of their own, a guy who could be trusted to owe huge sums of money and turn it in, and a guy that could be trusted with the secrets that could cost all of them their lives. So Craig Petties became a multi-millionaire before his 25th birthday. Now, coincidentally, DJ Paul of the 666 Mafia is Petties' half-brother, but I couldn't find any federal law enforcement accusations that said DJ Paul was involved, and I'm sure they would have loved to have made those accusations, so sounds like he's squeaky clean. Can't help who your relatives are. Now, Petties maintained his growing empire with violence. Even close childhood friends and relatives weren't safe if they stole drugs, cash, or customers from him, and especially if he heard they had even thought about talking to the law. Now, his cousin Antonio Allen was one of the guys who fell victim, and one friend said Petties grew even more violent when he was hiding out in Mexico with Barbie. More on that in a second. And the murders he pled guilty to eventually were all ordered from Mexico in Memphis via cell phone. One of the murders Petties denied was, like I said, that of his own cousin, Antonio Big Wayne Allen, the guy who put him up on the lick that got them all started. The hitman in that case claimed that Petties had him knock Allen off because Petties had heard Allen was about to start cooperating, and that wasn't true, apparently. One of Petties' customers/partners was a guy named Torrance Bookie Hill out of Columbus, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half south of the ATL. In his own case, Hill pled guilty, and he testified that he was supplying members of BMF, and his own operation supposedly grossed up to $9 million a month, and he was getting his supply from Craig Petties. Petties at this point was getting loads of 150 to 600 keys. Hill was getting loads of 150 to 500 keys a month starting in 2003 from Petties. He once testified he got 2,500 keys at once from Petties' Mexican connection, Edgar Barbie Villarreal. Now that would have been worth $50 million wholesale at $20,000 a key, and $250 million by the time it went into people's lungs, noses, and veins. So this George Hill guy is most likely the source of the word on the street that BMF was getting supplied by Craig Petties. Big Meech, for his part, says he never met Petties, but that doesn't mean he wasn't getting supplied from Petties' drugs through this Bookie Hill guy at certain times. When you're running an operation that big, you know, there's different suppliers. The key is to keep the machine rolling, and in big conspiracy cases like this, there's usually multiple conspiracies overlapping. And guys deemed to be BMF members probably did get supplied by other people at different times if Meech or T didn't have it at the moment. And if George Hill was getting, 500, 1,000 keys a month right down in Columbus, Georgia, you can bet some of it went up to Atlanta. Craig Petties himself was raking in so much cash at this time that he sent $10 million in cash for Barbie to hold on to for him down in Mexico. Back in South Memphis, Petties' own mother apparently was not down with the program, because when Petties tried to buy her a house, she took a pass, and she kept living in her $17,000 shotgun shack on West Dyson Avenue in South Memphis. Now, Barbie was a major captain for the Beltran-Leyva cartel. They were allied with the Sinaloa people. And Petties was perhaps his biggest customer for a time, along with the Flores twins up in Chicago, who later testified against El Chapo in his trial in Brooklyn. And Petties, in effect, was kind of a cartel member. I mean, if you're the one turning all the money in, I mean, you're part of the system.